is the ultimate travel guide from the people who know it best. Weekends with Yankee.
We're in Shelburne Falls, where Richard is meeting up with Cady Coleman, a former NASA astronaut who spent 159 days in space aboard the International Space Station.
So when you meet people and they say, oh, so what do you do? What do you say?
Well, you know, the fact that when people meet me and they say, oh, you know, you're an astronaut, you know, a real one? I'm like, yep, a real one.
You grew up in an exploration family.
I did. My dad was a deep sea diver, ended up being the head of salvage and diving for the Navy. And, you know, through his career, part of the Sea Lab program when men first lived under the sea. In my upbringing, I think it was sort of normal to think that living someplace kind of dangerous that other people would think was pretty weird was normal.
Everybody who's orbited the Earth has talked about the profound experience about it.
Just seeing it for the very first time, you know, looking out the window, and you know you're going to see this. I mean, people have told you, you've seen pictures, you know what it actually is supposed to look like. And yet when you see it with your own eyes, you look out the window and seeing that curve of the Earth, it's so clear that you are in a spaceship. Everybody you know, every human except the couple of you in a spaceship that is alive is down there on Earth. And I'm very proud of this very international program that we do this with, you know, more than 16 countries now, and have partners that we are all very different, and yet at the people level of living and working in space together, we do that really, really well. And I think it helps shine the light, you know, for down on the Earth when people can get hung up in sort of the rules and the treaties and all those kinds of things. But I think that the International Space Station really provides a beacon of what we can do as people.
The first I had heard of you was you played the flute in space, not just playing the flute, but you played with one of the greatest people of that instrument, Ian Anderson.
Getting to go to space, I think all of us really are wishing to share that with other people. And one of the ways you can do that is by bringing something from somebody else's world or your shared world, you know, up to space. So as a flute player, I did bring my own flute up to space. I also brought an Irish flute that was more than 100 years old, and a tin whistle for a band of great renown, the Chieftains. And then I also brought a flute for Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull, because I really loved that he brought the flute to rock music.
That is so wonderful. Jethro Tull's words to you, you playing as an astronaut.
I loved doing this. It brings me right back to space. And it was on the 50th anniversary of human spaceflight that we did this together.
You're in Houston, you're training in the Soviet Union, Japan. How do you meet the guy from Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts?
Josh and I actually met just after I defended my dissertation, and I called literally a wrong phone number. And he was so funny that I called him back. And we have been together ever since.
The world you're coming out of, engineering and chemistry, seems much different than his art of glass blowing.
He's just really a unique person that is, you know, funny and passionate about what he does. And, you know, there is a lot of chemistry involved in glass blowing. There's a lot of physics. I mean, it's actually tremendously complicated. But especially, my very favorite are the glass planets that he is known for and had been making for a dozen years. I mean, I knew about them when I was in grad school here, because I went to grad school in the same area. And one of my things I wanted to do when I defended my dissertation was to go to like the gallery and go and pick out my planet. And I'm the kind of person that wants to have something on my desk that just reminds me, okay, I know you're getting bogged down in this, but here's the goal, and you're just gonna take this one step at a time. And so I think that we're of the same heart, I would say.
Richard had the opportunity to meet Cady's husband, Josh Simpson, who draws his inspiration from space.
You ask how one becomes a glassblower. In my case, it was completely by accident. I was a student at Hamilton College, and they had a deal where you could leave for the month of January to get out of town and do almost anything you wanted to do, provided it had some academically redeeming value. And I convinced the dean that year that I'd like to learn how to blow glass. And I left to go to Goddard College in Plainfield, Vermont. When I arrived, they had taken down their glass furnace, and so I arrived and there was nothing there. I realized there were bricks there, and after a few days, I just thought, I'm just going to build a glass furnace, even though I didn't know how to do that. So that's exactly what I did. I built a glass furnace with another student and started to make glass. And the funny thing is that I was terrible. I was terrible at it, but I thought I was doing great. And I just, at the end of a month, I thought, I haven't done this enough. I have to continue doing it. And I called Hamilton College, and with one required course left to graduate, I dropped out of college. I proceeded to teach myself how to blow glass. And when I first moved here, one of the teachers in town asked me if I would be willing to demonstrate glassmaking to all the 8th graders in the county. These folks were not that interested in me making wine goblets. They couldn't care less. But then one night, I thought about the iconic photo that Bill Anders took of our Earth as Apollo 8 rounded the moon. It was such an amazing photograph, and I thought, that little planet that we live on is only as big as a little marble if you get the right distance and the right perspective from it. And so the next day, for those kids, I began to make marbles that were meant to be planets. I'm also a big science fiction fan, so we talked about what life would be like on this little planet that I was making for them. Did it have oceans, or was it a gaseous planet, or was it rocky? It's ironic that I met my wife. I had been making planets for years. When we first met, she told me that she wanted to become an astronaut. I think both of us are really interested in exploration. When I make a planet, I'm interested in how the viewer, you, are going to explore this little planet. And I always put something in that I don't expect you to find right away, and you might never find it. It makes it worth doing what I do. The fact that people are engaged with my work, like the work that I do, and the fact that they can be fascinated by it and inspired by it.
Josh's work was honored with a 50-year retrospective exhibit at the D'Amour Fine Arts Museum in Springfield. Curator Maggie North offered an insider's view.
The Springfield Museums are over 100 years old. We have been the hub of Springfield's cultural and artistic life for many, many years. In 2021, when Josh Simpson came to us at the museums and said, "We'd like to find a way to celebrate 5 decades in glass," we figured, it's a natural fit. We'd love to help you do that here at the Springfield Museums. The response to the work has a lot to do with the ability to immerse yourself within it, to recognize this incredible medium of glass turned into something magical, something that reflects the natural world and outer space. But we also have a lot of folks come through the exhibition who are already Josh Simpson fans. They've collected his work over the years. They know of it because perhaps they've been to see his studio in Shelburne Falls. And for them, this is like a coming home, a way to see even more Josh Simpson work and to understand the entire scope of his long and very impressive career.